Rich, I'm up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, that should be better.
Hey, it's Rich with Flybys Media. I'm up here in the Seattle area. This is Lake Stevens right now?
Yep, Lake Stevens.
All right, so we're in Lake Stevens. I'm here with Patrick Najmulski. So he was a Marine, and we knew each other in a roundabout way, but we have a lot of same mutual friends. So we talked on the phone after I got a couple of recommendations on LinkedIn. And I was like, who's in the Seattle area that we could talk to? And I got a bunch for him. So to those of you who did not luck out this time, maybe in the future, but after we talked a little bit, I was like, we got to do this. So so here we are, Ski and I. We're going to talk a little bit about, you know, the military, about the transition, about the feelings, about all that crazy stuff, and like, what could we have done better, or what should we be doing for our brothers and sisters, you know, who are going to get out at some point. So Ski, please tell me about your service. I mentioned it on the way up here about how it was non-conventional, but it was awesome. So tell me a little bit about all that.
All right, so the abridged version, I guess, joined in 1992 from Southern California, went to boot camp at San Diego, and I got to be an aviation ordnanceman, so I was loading bombs, missiles, rockets on F-18s, and deployed 3 times. Again, this is early 90s, pre-9/11. It was the cool time, you know. Going on a boat, going to see Hong Kong, Singapore, all that stuff. So just having a blast as a 19, 20-year-old kid. Went to be a drill instructor in San Diego. And then just post 9/11, I hit the fleet. I went back to an operational squadron, a light attack helicopter squadron out of Camp Pendleton.
Which one was that?
HMLA 267, Stingers.
Yep. All right.
Made the initial push into Baghdad. Saw my first taste of combat then, which was pretty enlightening. I was a staff sergeant, so I had the maturity level to be able to cope with that and lead Marines in combat, which was very rewarding. Yeah. Immediately got pulled out of Iraq, went to Okinawa for 31st MEU, got pulled back from that. Picked up gunny, put in for warrant officer, got it, went to TBS in Quantico, back to Iraq in 05 and 06, back to Camp Pendleton in 07, floated on a MEU in 09, Afghanistan, 2010, 2011, so I deployed a lot.
Yeah, seems like it.
And ultimately, I retired as a captain in 2014.
Got it. So how long was that total service?
Just shy of 22.
Awesome. All right, so a lot of experience. And you and I talked on the phone, and I was like, is there anything you haven't done? And I was so lucky I had the perfect question. I'm like, have you ever run a 300 PFT? And what was your answer?
Never in my life. Not even as a drill instructor. I always missed the mark, like by 1 pull-up, or if I got 20 pull-ups, I ran a 18:10, and I just missed the mark. So
you clearly didn't want it bad enough.
Nah, yeah.
So anyway, so what about like highlights of your career? Were there any kind of turning points? Obviously, getting warrant officer and captain. Is there any time, and that's a long time, 22 years, that stand out more than others as very pivotal in everything that you're doing in your day-to-day life now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your first time being shot at is not an insignificant event, you know, and if there was a seminal event in my career, it was definitely being in Iraq in 03. As you know, you're a Huey pilot. The HMLA community, the helicopter marine light attack community, is very, very tight-knit, enlisted and officer, because you have, you know, enlisted guys in the back, you know, on the door guns. So having the opportunity to go to combat with an HMLA was just a godsend for me, and it was everything that I thought it would be, both good and bad. And, you know, some of the bad you carry with you every day, and the good, of course, I carry with me every day in my career too. But definitely the opportunity to lead Marines in combat was the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life.
So that type of leadership that we experienced, I know we're going to get into some of the civilian world, but just comparison right now, like what do you see out here so far versus what you experienced, and do you feel like that is something that you're always trying to catch up to and like seek out that type of person?
Absolutely. So one thing that became apparent pretty quickly when I transitioned to the civilian life is, in the Marine Corps at least, like, you always rely upon the establishment to take care of you. And, you know, we have our fitness reports that we get either semi-annually or annually, depending on rank. And you never have to have much face time with the boss. You never have to, your performance will always take care of you and get you promoted. If you're an upstanding Marine, soldier, sailor, airman. And I learned quickly that you kind of have to look out for yourself, because nobody's going to do it for you. Not saying that civilian life is cutthroat. At least my experience isn't necessarily that it's cutthroat. But the people who are in leadership positions in civilian life, they haven't had, you know, firm, fair leadership throughout their entire. It wasn't beaten into them, for lack of a better word, when they were a young civilian, I guess, as it was when we were in boot camp or TBS or OCS. And so when you kind of seek out that type of leadership, sometimes it's just not there, and it's no fault of their own, but they haven't come up in the same school that we have.
We covered a bunch of things already. I want to talk about very specifically kind of the timeline. Like, retirement's on the horizon.
Yeah.
Like, how did you think, or what was the first time you thought of, what am I going to do next?
Well, so I was that Marine coming up in the Marine Corps that you couldn't keep my hand out of the air. I was, constantly deploying. Every time I came home from a deployment, within 72 hours, all my shit was washed, packed, inventoried. I was ready to go in case the balloon went up. I was the guy that would go. Yeah. And especially being an aviation ordnance man, where our entire reason for being is loading weapons on aircraft. Post 9/11, if there's a war going on, I'm going. So, anyways, let's fast forward to post 9/11. Still deploying, still have my hand in the air, not doing a whole lot to set myself up, because frankly, I didn't know that I was going to be here at 42 years old. I had been in combat in 2003, and I saw it, and I realized the severity of it, and everybody had done their wills and last testaments and all that stuff, and keep filling out wills, keep going back to the desert, and okay, is this the time when I'm not coming home? And been to more memorial services than I care to mention. Yep. And I just didn't have that long of foresight, I guess. So let's fast forward. Here I am a captain, back from my 9th deployment. My body's starting to break down, and to be honest, after Afghanistan, I think I was ready to hang up the spurs. Got it. I just couldn't do it anymore, both mentally and physically.
Who was your last deployment with, by the way?
One MEF.
Okay.
Yeah, so I deployed for 13 months to Afghanistan. Oh, wow. Yeah, it was, we got there, and there was one helicopter squadron there that I had a lot of buddies with. Got to send them off, got to see another squadron come in that I flew with, got to send them off, got to see another squadron come in, and I'm like, this deployment is never going to end. So I came back from that and said, okay, I think I'm done. Blew out a couple discs in my back, my knees went bad. I'm like, all right. Let's start thinking about putting in for papers and getting.
Z. Did you overlook things that you may have wanted to do? So did you just fall in love with the idea? Not fall in love, but just decide, like, I have to do this because this is what I've done.
Yeah. Many Marines in my field, and I'm sure it's the same across many services, you do a certain MOS for 4, 10, 20 years, and you kind of you follow that path of least resistance, or maybe it really is your passion. And you get out and you go, you know what, I want to keep doing that. So the path for Marines in my MOS, for many of them, and God bless them for doing it, because they're very passionate about what they do. Yep. They retire from the Navy or Marine Corps and they stay in the weapons field. Well, my career, like you said, was unconventional. I was kind of that rolling stone that gathered no moss. I did one deployment on an aircraft carrier, and I'm like, okay, check in the box, I'm going to do something else. Did a deployment to Iwakuni, Japan with F-18s, okay, check in the box, I'm going to be a drill instructor. Did everything I wanted to do in F-18s, let's go helicopters, let's go do this, let's do that. So, as a senior Marine, as a Chief Warrant Officer 2, I got winged as a aerial observer door gunner on Hueys. That's unheard of, but I wanted to challenge myself and do something different. Yep. So when I looked at my career and I realized I did everything I wanted to do, let's keep challenging ourselves. Yep. So I didn't want to be on my deathbed and think, gee, I wonder if I could have done something different. So when I finally closed the door on my career, I started kind of half-assed looking at jobs in the MOS and realized I'm not going to be passionate about it anymore. I want to do something different and challenge myself.
Totally.
Visited a buddy up in the Seattle area who I was a sergeant with eons ago, fell in love with the area, so I shifted my job hunt up here. Yeah. And
tell me about your resume building real quick. So you're looking for jobs. How easy was it for you to translate that, or how heavy was it with like Marine Corps lingo?
Yeah, that is an awesome point, and probably one of the biggest points I would tell anybody transitioning is I reached out to a friend of mine. I knew him as a captain. He was a Hornet pilot. Yep. He was retired as a lieutenant colonel, and he went to UW, went to University of Washington, so he was up here. And I knew he was up here through that mutual friend, so I reached out to him, hey, sir. And he goes, first of all, drop the sir shit. It's Jeff.
Yeah, yeah.
So Jeff Hancock was able to hook me up, and he's like, all right, I'm going to give you a copy of my resume. Obviously, it's going to be different because I was an F-18 pilot. You are clearly not. But I want you to kind of gloss over it and pick up on some of the lingo. So some of the things that I'm in a hiring position now as well. Nice. And I've read several military resumes, and the problem is we speak in acronyms.
Yeah.
How do you translate that to civilian life?
Yeah.
So you might be an 0331 machine gunner, right? You're a section leader responsible for 250 caliber machine guns and emplacing this and that, blah, blah, blah. Civilians won't even know what you're talking about and they'll look at you like you're completely an alien to them.
Yeah.
However, if you start to focus on metrics and the tangibles and selling points, was responsible for 3 subordinates and employing $1.2 million worth of equipment with full accountability in an effective manner, that's the type of stuff that will translate easily. You know, we talk about breaking things down Barney style in boot camp. You want to break things down to where any common Joe on the street can read this thing, and you don't have to explain what a traversing and elevation mechanism is.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, so getting back on, so you moved out here. Or
Yep.
You decided to shift your job hunt out
Yep.
here, and then what?
So came up here to visit a buddy of mine, fell in love with the area. I said, okay, there's not a lot for me in San Diego. I need to turn over a new leaf. On the personal side, I was going through a divorce at the time. So everything that had defined me for years, you know, being a leader of Marines, being a Marine, being, you know, married, being a father, like suddenly in very short order, probably within 6 months, you know, I'm retiring, we're going through divorce, my son's going to Florida, like, you know, all these things that define me are now kind of washed away, and I'm like, well, screw it, I might as well start a completely new leaf. I'll never forget, it was the 38th page of my job hunt. I see this tagline that says, do you find yourself watching shows on the History Channel and correcting the narrator because they're wrong? And I'm like, abso-freaking-lutely, that is me. So there was a video game studio up here